Hey guys, this is Katie here with Life the Mundane and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to get to do something a little bit different. We are going to be I'm going to be showing you guys an interview that I did just last weekend with 8 YouTubers, and we all got to share some of the answers to the frequently asked questions that we get asked all the time about homeschooling. So I'm going to be showing you 3 of the questions and answers that we answered from that video, but there is a playlist of all the questions and answers, so be sure to check out that playlist down below so you guys can see all the interviews and everything. But we wanted to break it up in kind of chunks for you guys so it's more bite-sized pieces. We're going to be answering 3 questions for you guys, things like, can you homeschool special needs and kids with learning disabilities? How do you know if you should be a routine family or a schedule family when it comes to your homeschooling? And also diving into some tips on how to homeschool multiple kids. So I'm excited to share that with you guys, and let's get started.
Okay, I am here with an awesome group of homeschool moms, and we are going to answer some questions. So I'm going to introduce myself. I am the host. I am Becky, and this is Russell's Loving Life. I am a homeschooling mom of 2, and I have been homeschooling for 6 years.
I'm Nina from Everyday Blessing. I'm a homeschooling mom with 5 kids at home, 6 kids total, and I have been homeschooling for 3.5 years.
I'm Katie with Life the Mundane. I have 6 kiddos, and we have been homeschooling for about 5 years, but it feels like a lot longer because I'm a second-generation homeschooler. So I've gotten to be the student and the teacher, and so that's been kind of fun. So it feels like my whole life that I've been homeschooling.
I'm Leilani. I have my channel, Living with Eve. I have 4 kids. I've been homeschooling them, so he's in 4th grade, so that's 5 years. And I mean, that's it. And so what is it? 10th, 4th grade, 2nd grade, kindergarten.
I'm Ryan, Mom on Mission, and I have 3 boys. We've been homeschooling for 4 years, 6 years if you count preschool.
Hi, Mommy on the Move here. I have 4 kids, and I have been homeschooling for 1 year.
Hey, I'm Colleen. My channel is called Our Blessed Life. I am homeschooling 2 girls. One is entering 11th grade this upcoming year, and the other is entering 2nd grade. And this is going to be upcoming my 9th year homeschooling.
Hi, my name is Ingrid from the Ingrid Chronicles. I have 5 girls, 2 are home. The others are adults. I have been homeschooling for 5 years now.
All right, so yeah, with 6 kids, especially when you're talking about littles being involved too, it can get a little complicated, but it doesn't have to be. And I think the biggest thing with homeschooling multiple kids is prioritizing and thinking about what can you group together. A lot of times history and science can be grouped together, Bible can be grouped together. It's a really easy thing to kind of incorporate, and it doesn't mean that just because you're doing it together means that everybody's doing exactly the same work. You can very easily do the same textbook read aloud. So we use Apology of Science, and we read it aloud to everybody. But I might have the littlest ones just draw a picture of whatever I'm reading about while I'm reading it, while the older ones might do the science experiments or the more in-depth projects. So I think you can kind of tier it, and it helps your sanity so much more when everybody's not doing all different things. I think another big thing to remember is that when I'm talking about prioritizing is think about, it's not wrong to use a teacher intensive program when you have a lot of kids, but you can't do everything teacher intensive. You'll burn yourself out really fast. So pick and choose what you want to pour into your kids. So for me, I'm not a big math person. I don't love it. I know it's necessary. So I kind of phone it out to teaching textbooks, and it's a computer program. It teaches it, it grades it, whatever. And, but my probably more emphasis is on the language arts. So I do more teacher intensive stuff with language arts with my kids, and kind of use resources that have a little bit more help with it for some of those other core subjects that we can't do all together. So I think that's just a really big thing. Is just think about what's important to you and your family, and kind of realize that you can't be everywhere at all times. So.
Well said. Yeah, you can't be everywhere at the same time. All right, Yasmin, we'll go to you for that one as well.
Yeah, I think the teaching multiple kids, with it being my first year homeschooling, I think I found that to be the most challenging for me, was to juggle all 4 kids, because I have from, 4th grade all the way to a 2-year-old. So managing the 2-year-old while I was teaching my older ones was extremely challenging. This is my first year. I did not know how to do that. So I picked my battles
Mm-hmm.
with them. And I think that's very important if you're just starting out, is don't go hard on yourself. Don't expect too much in your first year, because you're going to overwhelm yourself. Pick your battles and have a lot of grace on yourself, and a lot of grace and patience with your kids, and know that you will fall into a rhythm. You will fall into a routine, a rhythm with your kids. Are going to start getting familiar with what's happening around them and how you're starting to do things. So juggling the multiple kids can be done. You just have to find what works specifically for your family and not try to copy or manage somebody else's schedule for you.
Every homeschool is different, so never try to mimic what some other family does, because what works for your family may not work for theirs, or what works for theirs may not work for yours. So you have to find what works for you. I cannot stress that enough to any homeschool family. Go ahead, Katie.
Yeah, I was going to say, the other thing that I think is really important when you're homeschooling multiple kids is have a plan in place for the downtime, because inevitably you can't be everywhere at one time. And so your kids there's going to be points where someone finishes before the next person and they need to know what to do. And if you don't give them something to do, even if that something to do is just like, hey, while you're waiting on me, go play outside, or hey, while you're waiting on me, go, pick up in your room, or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be a school task, but if you don't give them what they need to do when they're waiting on you, you will lose them, and you will spend all day gathering them back together and trying to get back into school mode. And it can be very frustrating for you and for the kids, because they feel like you're pulling them away from their playtime and you feel like they can't stay focused for a second. So, just kind of brainstorm things that you could have your kids do. We use a lot of supplemental computer games to review math facts or spelling facts or things like that. So my kids know that they can go to those if they need something, or they can always pick up a book and read or whatever. But just have those expectations set so that you both don't end up frustrated and annoyed with each other.
Yeah, I agree. And then one thing I might add is that if one of your kids is done doing what they were supposed to do, and you're still in the middle of teaching somebody else, and now you have somebody like pulling on you and say, what do I do next? What do I do next? Well, also take the opportunity for the older ones to kind of entertain the younger ones. I've done that a lot, where my oldest is just done because that's who she is. She's like super get it done, and I'm like, what's next? I'm done. What's next? And I tell her, well, I'm your sister is still not done yet. Can you like entertain the 2-year-old and play with him with the puzzles and the blocks, and just get him off of my feet? Yes, just definitely use your children to entertain your other ones.
Okay, so first of all, there are a difference between a daily schedule and a routine. One, when you have a schedule, it's usually tied to times in your day, whereas a routine is usually attached to a sequence of events. And so, every homeschooler is different. I will tell you up front, I heard this before I started homeschooling, and I think it's 100% true. It usually takes 2 to 3 years before you find your groove when it comes to the routine and schedule. And there are exceptions to that rule. You may just have a killer first year and just nail it all, and kudos to you. But don't beat yourself up. If it's kind of hard to figure out your routine and schedule, just keep persevering, because you'll get there, I promise. And for us, it was exactly 3 years. On the 3rd year mark, I was like, oh, I feel like we kind of have an idea of what we're doing. So that's the first thing. For us, the routines were really hard to build. We have kids with special needs. We had a lot of extenuating circumstances. We moved during everything. And so what I found easiest to do for us, we are a routine family versus a schedule family. And what I found easiest to do was to attach things to things that are already part of your day. So for instance, even if you feel like you have the most unstructured day in the world, your kids probably at least eat breakfast, so attach your first school item with breakfast and then just build from there. And it's okay if you start slow. This is summer is the perfect time to start building your routine. So for us, after breakfast, we do our morning basket time. So we do, Bible and a lot of read alouds and stuff like that. Just start with that this summer. That's really light, easy thing to do. And then you can kind of work through it. We also we kind of plan our schedule around our meal times. So we have breakfast, and then we do our morning basket, math, and reading. And we try to hit those core subjects and those subjects that my kids tend to kind of lose motivation in further in the day. We try to do those before lunch. So we have breakfast sometimes at 7 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes we have it at 9:30 or 10. And same thing with lunch. Sometimes we have it at 11:30, sometimes we have it at 1:30. And so we kind of let our schedule or our routine flow with that. And I think that that's been really helpful for us to kind of build it around there and just build it slowly. But I think give yourself a lot of grace, because everybody does it different.
Well, very well said. All right, let's go with Ryan.
Yeah, so I'm kind of the same way. I started off those first couple years, I really wanted that at 8:30 we do this, at 9:30 we do this. And that worked for my very first year, only because I only had a preschooler and a newborn. But after that newborn got mobile, it was like, forget about it. So we kind of do more of a block scheduling. So we have, and I mean, it's similar to Katie's, but we have kind of from 7-ish is when my kids are allowed to get out of their rooms, because otherwise they'd be up at like 5 a.m. and I'm not about that. That's my quiet time. So from like 7 to 9, they're allowed to get up, eat breakfast, do some chores, play a little bit if they want. And then right after breakfast, we clean up and we move on to our school day. And then right before lunch, we kind of have a little break. And in that morning chunk, we kind of do our together subjects. So that would be our science, our history, our read alouds, Bible, stuff like that. And then at lunch, we usually have some sort of audiobook going. And then I let them have a little break. And then we have our second block of work. And that's where I work with them independently. If the third grader needs help with something, the first grader can do his independent work and then go play while I finish up. And then, we switch. And then typically our school day can be done that way. And I actually block off my entire day into the evening too, just because our family works best that way. But ultimately, I think you have to look kind of at your family and what you think your family would respond to, and what you think you can uphold for the long term. And if something doesn't work, toss it out and try something new. It's going to take a while, but eventually you'll find your groove.
Okay, so yes, I definitely agree with Katie and Ryan about the two different types of schedule. I'm very type A, and I kind of need to have some type of structure and control of what's happening, because I kind of fall apart with chaos. So I do a block schedule, and it works best for me because that's the way I operate. And my kids come from public school, because this was our first year homeschooling. So they were coming from a public school. So they needed to have some type of structure to kind of resemble a little bit of what they were going through. Because if not, it just felt like it was still vacation, even though we took kind of like the summer to deschool. But they needed to know that when it was time for school, it was from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. That was my block for school. We started at 10, and at 2 o'clock we stopped school. So they needed to know that between those hours, those 4 hours, it was business, it was school, And yes, we broke off for snacks and lunch, but hey, we're still in school time, so they need to come back to the school and do their work. And that's what worked for me. And I tried the per the minute schedule, and that didn't work. I tried the routine, and that didn't work. So definitely, if you're starting out, you're gonna come across lots of trial and error. The only way to find out what works is by trying it. And if it doesn't work, toss it, like Ryan said, and figure out the next move. Take in consideration who you are and who your kids are, and don't imitate nobody's schedule, but try to work for what works for your family, whether it's a routine, a block, or per the minute. If you're that type of person, that's what's going to work for you.
I think another thing that's important, whether you're doing routine or schedule or whatever, is to remember that it's a guide and it's not your ball and chain. It's not something to be tied to. In homeschooling, if you are not flexible, you will break so fast. It's not even funny. There will be times when you have doctor's appointments or somebody comes over and has a call, or one of your kids needs a heart-to-heart moment and it takes all day dealing with a character issue instead of math. So I think the big thing I had to struggle with was I felt like maybe a routine or schedule or whatever wasn't working if I couldn't do it every single day. And there's no such thing. I don't think for many of you guys, I don't think that there's such thing as a perfect one that works every single day without flaw. And so I think remember that the idea is it's something to come back to on the normal days. And on the abnormal days, you know, just go with the flow, and you can always get back. So for us, there are days where the morning just kind of all falls apart. Maybe everybody woke up late or whatever. And so we just kind of start back again with our routine, with our after lunch stuff. And sometimes we might just not do the rest of the morning stuff, you know, but it's kind of a way to get back on track. Maybe the whole day doesn't have to be thrown off. But I just think that's important to remember, that you have to go with the ebb and flow a little bit and use this as a guide, not as something you're tied to.
Yes, you definitely can. My daughter Sophie this year just finished first grade, and she has set D5, which is a rare genetic condition. We thought about public school with her just because when your child needs a lot of therapies and you go to doctors and things like that, they really push public school on you. At least they did with me. However, when we had her evaluated by the public school, we actually found out that the amount of therapy that she was going to get through public school was actually very little. And on top of that, it was not going to be individual therapy or private therapy like she had been getting. It was going to be group therapy that was not really specialized to her needs. So we basically felt like homeschooling her, in addition to being good on the education side, was good for her therapy, because she was only going to get maybe an hour and a half of therapy to 2 hours a week through public school, and it was going to be mostly group and mostly not focused on her needs. Where in the early stages of this, we were able to do 8 hours of private therapy and then work school around that and her medical conditions and her medical appointments. So for us, it has been really a blessing to be able to get her the care that she needs and still be able to homeschool. And then the other thing with homeschooling on the actual education side with a special needs child is that you can do exactly what they need. So with Sophie, she has, she's not been diagnosed yet with any specific learning disabilities, but she has been tested and she is at risk for certain learning disabilities. And she has global delays, and so she's behind. She is this year, grade-wise or age-wise, would have been in second grade, but she was in first grade, and she really was doing more of a kindergarten level work. And so for her, we kind of have the sort of making progress where you have 2 steps forward, but then 1 step back, and then maybe 2 steps forward, and then maybe 2 steps back. And then usually it's like 4 steps forward and then a couple of steps back. So what we do in homeschooling that's really good for that is we can start with one curriculum, and then when she hits a brick wall, which it's not if, it's when, she's going to hit a brick wall. And when that happens, then we can pivot and we can move to another curriculum, and we can continue to make progress. And sometimes we go back to the first curriculum, but we do whatever she needs, and we do it at her pace and her time. And if there's a day when she needs to do less, then we do less. If there's a day when she wants to do more, then we can do more. And in public school, you're just not going to get that one-on-one hands-on with your child. And also, no one loves and cares for your child as much as you do. So for me, I can't imagine putting Sophie in public school, or honestly any other type of school. I just don't feel that she would have made the same amount of progress. And it has nothing to do with me as being an awesome teacher. It just has to do with somebody that can sit beside her every single day, do the hard things, do it over and over again, and do it 1,000 million times, as many times as it takes, and then do it again tomorrow and just not give up. I mean, it's really more about that. And I just think that most of the time the mom is going to be the one that's going to do the thing over and over again and not give up. And I think that's why our special needs kids really can thrive in homeschooling.
Yeah, very well put. Let's go to Nina next. Same question.
So I definitely agree with everything that Colleen said. And we started out in public school. My son went to public school all the way up until the middle of 4th grade, and he was getting services, speech services and things like that, like social interaction services, because he was found to be on the spectrum. And it was stressful. It was too overwhelming. The therapy that he was getting wasn't really benefiting him, because by the time it came for him to be pulled out of class to have therapy, he was already stressed to the max. So nothing was benefiting him at all. When we pulled him out and started homeschooling him, it was like night and day. It was amazing, the difference that it made. And I'm not saying that every special needs child should be homeschooled, but if it's on your heart, don't just dismiss it. Explore it as an option. And so something that's very common with Asperger's is that you have tunnel vision, and you're very obsessed with one certain thing for a very, very long time. And you can ask, for example, right now, Mario Kart. Ask my kids on the spectrum anything about Mario Kart. They know it. They've seen the YouTube videos. They've seen everything about it. The mods and the different wheels that make you go faster. All of these things, right? All of this useless information. We use that all day long in school. So whatever their interest is, whatever their hyper focus is at that time, we use it. Write me a story, write me a chapter about Luigi and Mario. They just got into a fight, and Toad has to be the peacemaker. So what's Toad gonna do? Here's your social story. You know, it's absolutely possible to homeschool your special needs children. Not only is it possible, sometimes it's more beneficial, in my opinion.
All right, Leilani, same question to you.
Everything Nina said, everything that Colleen said was right. In fact, Nina, as you were speaking, I taught in the public school for 10 years, and I had a child that had Asperger's for 3 years in my classroom, and I absolutely adored him. And one of the things with the public school, I don't know if this is happening in your state, but it's happening in my state, where parents are realizing that they care more about their kids, like Colleen said, than the teachers did. And it was reminding me of when I had this student, and I know some of you guys were teachers, and you could probably remember these moments, going to lunch, sitting with the other teachers, and all the other teachers do is complain about the students. Well, he was one of the kids that they complained about all the time. And it always broke my heart. But I knew that I loved him to death. But knowing that as a mom who does have a special needs daughter, I know that I love her more than anybody else. And the other thing with the public school is the need for special needs teachers that are good is huge. But we have so many kids nowadays that are diagnosed with a disability, and some with extreme disabilities like cerebral palsy and autism and Down syndrome, and it goes on and on and on, that they don't have enough teachers that care. So they will substitute teachers in there every single day, and these kids aren't getting an education. They're becoming babysat. And I think the day that I actually decided to homeschool was I was pregnant with my second child. I was walking down the hallway, and there was a kid that has autism, and I knew his mom because his mom was a teacher at that school, and he was wandering around the hallways because his teacher was absent that day, and there was a substitute teacher in there, and he didn't have anywhere to go. So I had to actually, take care of him. But the thing is, the kids make fun of him. It broke my heart. That day I decided to homeschool and it was official. It was a turnaround. And and what bothers me the most, and I will be completely honest, special needs families are the families that I like to evaluate and support the most, because they're scared that they're doing their child a disservice, that they're missing out on therapies, that they're missing something, and they're not. They're absolutely not. I knew a parent, and this is one that I left the house and I sat in my car and I broke down crying, but it was a child that they were not going to live past a certain age, and the parents knew that. They had cerebral palsy, they were mute, there was many others, but they needed to have an evaluator because the state recommends it. They were terrified when I walked into their house. But when they told me stories about how the older sister, who was an adult, was homeschooling the child as the mom went out and worked to make a living, the bonding between the sister and the brother became intense because she was the only one that could understand him and find what he needed. That doesn't happen in a public school setting. And I think a lot of parents are coming to the realization that they really truly have that power to homeschool and have that impact on their child that nobody else, can. It's a beautiful situation. So sorry, I see a lot of you guys are feeling the same way I do.
The other thing about having a special needs child with homeschooling is that you can focus on exactly what they need. And even if they're in a class with other kids that have special needs, they may all learn differently. So you can focus exactly what that child needs, and they are so much more likely to make progress that way when you can just focus on what they need and you're not having to worry about the whole classroom, because in a public school, it's going to be about the whole class, not about your individual child, who still may be able to learn whatever it is being taught, but they may need to see it not one different way, but maybe 3 or 4 or 5 different ways before they can get it.
All right, so can you homeschool special needs? Absolutely. Like everybody else said, you definitely can, and there are so many benefits to homeschooling special needs that I think a lot of people have touched on. I personally have a kiddo with a genetic disorder called 22q11.2 deletion syndrome, and part of that syndrome is that she also has hearing loss, she has juvenile arthritis, she just has a lot of different things going on with her body, medical special needs wise, and then I also have a son on the spectrum, and homeschooling's been a big blessing. It's a challenge when you're homeschooling special needs. I'm not going to sugarcoat that at all, but it can be a huge blessing for your kids. I heard it described this way once, and I really think that this resonated with me a lot. If you think about your experience personally growing up in school, a lot of us had at least one just super amazing teacher. They went out of their way to make everything fun, to teach to your learning style. They maybe spent extra time walking alongside you and personalizing that education and just giving you a lot of attention. But it took them a long time to learn what you need in order to do that and to build on that. And by the end of the year, a lot of times it was this fantastic experience. And then you go to the next year in school and you have a totally new teacher. And even if they were the same amazing, awesome kind of teacher as before, they still had to start from square one on learning you before they could tailor things to you. And so while we may not have the formal education of a special needs teacher or something like that, what we do have is we have the advantage of building on our knowledge of our kids year after year after year. We get to be a student of our students, and that is a gift for all of our kids, special needs or not, that we get to do. And I really think it's something that we can forget how much of a blessing that is. So I can learn that my child learns best when they have something more kinesthetic or more visual or more auditory, and then I can build on that and make next year even better. So I think that's something that we have to remember. The second thing I would just say is that if you are homeschooling a kiddo with special needs, beware of the mom guilt. as Leilani said, definitely there's a lot of parents who feel very unsure of themselves because our kids don't finish things typically in the way that other kids without special needs or learning disabilities might do. And they don't follow the same schedule, and we shouldn't be trying to make them do that. That's why we're homeschooling, is to individualize their education. When kids are in public school with special needs, they get an IEP, an individualized education plan. Well, when we homeschool, every single kid gets an individualized education plan. And I think that that is a huge benefit. But it can be hard because sometimes the goals are not as measurable. Your child may not be able to finish a textbook or finish, like Colleen was saying, be on grade level the same way other kids can. And so we can get discouraged. And so I think the big thing is find ways to measure your kids' successes so that you can really enjoy those and celebrate those. It's a really important part. I think that finding ways, I got the idea from reading the book Homeschool Bravely, which is super awesome. I definitely recommend it. But she was talking about finding a passage of reading that's a little bit more challenging for your kid. Record them, audio or visual, reading that passage at the beginning of the school year, and then record them in the middle of the school year reading that same passage. And then at the end of the year, that same passage. This is not for your records for the state or anything like that, but it's just for you and your child to be able to see improvement. Even if your child's not able to perfectly read the whole thing by the end of the year, you might notice they do better with inflection or pausing at the punctuation marks, or maybe there's less words they stumble over or new sight words that they have grasped. Find ways like that you can measure your child's successes, not to measure them against anybody else, but to be able to celebrate the little moments. And really that's what I would advise. But really it can be such a blessing and a huge benefit to be able to have that one-on-one time with your kids and be able to personalize things to their education. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know that was a little bit longer than what I normally post, but I thought it was so good I couldn't help but post it for you guys. So I'm excited for you guys to check it out. Be sure to check out the playlist down below so that you can see all the other answers to the different questions that were asked, because there were so many more than just these 3. And so I hope you guys will check that out. I also hope that you guys will stick around and subscribe and check out all the Fantastic Ladies channels. I will post those in the description. Just give them a thumbs up and subscribe, and let them know that Katie at Left the Mundane sent you over there. And I hope you guys have a great day. We are going to be having some really fun videos coming up, in particular one where I let my kids do the teaching or picking what we learn for the entire week. So I'm excited to share that with you guys, and I hope you guys will stick around. Talk to you later. Bye.